Hello, my peeps, and welcome back to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeps. I'm your host, Ike. Before I get too excited, I'd like to just take a moment and say thanks for being here and giving this pod a listen. It means a lot to me that you chose to use your precious time and give me and my guest your ears. Now, if after all this awesomeness, you'd still have the wherewithal, it'd be really cool if you shared this with someone you like, or think would like it, or just subscribe yourself if you already haven't. That'd mean a lot. So this is episode 5 of season 3. And I don't know if you can tell, but I've been mildly sick this week. Had what I'm assuming is the flu. I think it's mostly on the way out, but it's every time I've thought that it continues to be there in the morning. Fun enough. So I was supposed to go back to work this week, which I said last week. I was going to go back to work on Wednesday, but I was sick, so I ended up missing all the meetings, which darn, but also actually kind of darn, because I don't know of any protocol changes, and I'll have to be filled in on the fly. But which whatever. Um, but hopefully, fingers crossed, God's willing, stars aligning, I shall be returning to work after such a long break this coming Monday. So the day that you're listening to this. In the interim, though, this last week, I have been having some revelations. Been talking to smart people, thinking by myself. And it's kind of interesting. I used to think that doing big things, doing things that would be considered societally important or having weight or ramifications or financial movement was what life was about. It was the most important thing. You needed to chase after that. And after talking to some smart people and doing some soul searching, I've come to the realization that I don't think I really care about that anymore, or maybe ever did, and that it was always something that I felt like I needed to do, not that I actually wanted to do. This doesn't have any ramifications for the podcast. This is just amusing. No worries. This is something that I just intrinsically enjoy doing. So until it becomes too difficult for, the juice doesn't become worth the squeeze, I'll continue to do this. If you want to support that, awesome. If you want to talk to me about that, if you have fun question ideas, or if you like what I'm saying or want to know more about how I got to this position, hit me up at twitter.com/likeikes or email me at passionandpeevespodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, it's an interesting realization that it's I don't think I really care. The things I like in life are small. I don't esteem to meet or be around celebrities. I think it'd be neat, but it wouldn't be, it's not a goal of any relevance to me. I don't, I don't feel the need. It'd be, I feel the want for a lot of these things, not the need, which is the interesting realization. So, I mean, I've talked about how I've, stepped away from writing, but now I'm thinking about stepping away very much from the idea of this need for everything to there's this thing in television called syndication, right? Where if the show is popular enough and everybody loves it, it comes back around and everybody, talks about it, and that's how you make money. And I think I've always had this idea in my mind of needing everything I did to be of that level. Otherwise, it was worthless, If, nobody remembers the person in a tournament who finishes 11th. Everybody always remembers the person who wins or is in the on the podium, on the final table, in the elimination rounds. They make the conference finals. All those terms are what dictate whether it's successful or not. That one win differential. And I feel like I've lived my life and put myself through my life through that lens for so long, when it's not something I don't think, or maybe I've changed, I don't know. Either which way, at this the now me, if you will, no longer feels that way. And maybe I never did, but either way, I don't now, and it's very fascinating looking and recalibrating my life and kind of thinking through all the decisions I've made, all the decisions I'm still unconsciously making, and how so many of them are because of that rubric. When that's not deep down right now who I am. I still want success. There's certain things that I still want to do very well in. And, would I like this podcast to be listened to by tens of thousands, nay, millions of people? Hell yeah, that'd be rad. If you got that many friends, hook it up. But if it's only you that listens to it, that's enough. I don't know, it's just kind of wild. Having that, I've had a couple epiphany moments in the last month or so. And while sometimes initially hard to accept, it's very fascinating, that feeling of when you let go of your precepts of what must be, of what always has been, of that kind of in for a penny, in for a pound, sunken cost mindset that we don't realize, at least I didn't realize I was under for so long, that I've been carrying my life this way, ergo I must continue to. And just accept that, what do you like doing? Why do you like doing it? And just be happy with that. Because that's when you are happy. Anyway, thank you for listening to my musings. Today's episode is Matt ANCIAUX, lovely friend and Magic player, and all-around fantastic guest. So take it away, pastime me. All right, folks. Today with me I have the 2002 McAuliffe Middle School Honor Roll alum, winner of the Grumpiest Old Man Award at Los Alamitos High School French 2 course, and a member of the Ninja Advisory Board. It's Matt ANCIAUX!
Thank you. I've never felt so honored. Appreciate it, Isaac.
Well, I'm glad I could give you the accolades that you have rightfully earned. But now, I gotta know, what decision in life are you most proud of making?
Probably the obvious one. I have a 9-year-old son, so having him.
Proud papa, as he should be.
Always.
Well, as you have a son, do you have perhaps a best or most memorable piece of advice that you've got in your life that perhaps you'll tell to him when he's ready to hear it?
Never say sorry.
Expound on that.
So the way it was explained to me was not that you never say sorry, because obviously nobody's perfect and bad things happen and you do things you're not supposed to and you have to say sorry. But rather you should live or try to interact in such a manner that you don't have to ever say sorry. So carry yourself appropriately, etc., etc.
Interesting. It's a very curious way of saying. I like the the bit of knowledge that the shell in which that knowledge is delivered is so easy to remember, because it is so kind of like you're having to explain it. It is kind of like it rings in such a queer way to your ear that you're it's easy to remember, right? It's kind of like there is no such color as black or whatever like that. That's such a perverse sentence that it is kind of earworm in a way. The idea of never saying sorry is a great way to, it's a great way to kind of remember it. It's self-bolding text.
Exactly. When you're a thick skulled like me, it helps.
What's your favorite book, comic, or cartoon that would either be the best or worst choice for a big screen adaptation?
Ooh, so it already happened, but I want it redone because I thought it sucked, if I'm being honest. I was a big comic nerd in my preteen years, and my favorite character was the X-Man Gambit. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe he was represented in one of the Wolverine flicks.
Yeah, he
But
in the yeah, it was the Wolverine movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
I hated it. So I just want it redone.
Well, don't worry, a lot of people hated that movie.
So
Yeah, and they are set to be doing that one. What do you think they did wrong
awesome.
with the character that you think they could do better on the second go round?
So when you are French, and especially during those preteen years when they backed out of the war in Iraq, you didn't get a lot of love. That's all I'll say. And I thought, like, I really like the Cajun flair of Louisiana and that culture, and how they put it on him and how they wrote him in the comics in that year, those few years period that I was following it and reading them. And I think it came off in the movie like the token type of Cajun guy, rather than like why it's cool that he's like that. If that makes sense, I might be explaining.
Yeah, more caricature than character.
Sure.
All right, yeah, I messed with that. Well, perhaps when seeing that around your 9-year-old son, you had a favorite G-rated curse word to utter in your disappointment.
Oh, he hears the non-G-rated ones and reminds me that I'm not supposed to use them. So,
all right. Well, if you didn't want to be reminded, what would you and should you have used?
Oh, probably fudge. That's one of his favorites now.
Fudge is a good one.
It's a great one.
Perhaps the fudging best one there ever was.
I would agree.
Speaking of children, what's the silliest thing that you believed as a child that you look back on and just giggle, that you ever thought that was a thing?
That adults knew what they were doing.
They know everything. Look at them. They're so old and beards and they tell me what to do. They must be intelligent and knowing of all things.
Yeah, nothing's hurt more growing up than realizing just how incompetent my peers are.
Oh yeah, it's just children with facial hair making stupid decisions.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's kind of beautiful though, because like as sad as it is to like have that like veil lifted and realize that, you know, there is no, you know, book that gets crammed into your brain. It's kind of nice because then you don't you don't have anything to live up to anymore. You don't have there's not this bar of being an adult. You're just
there's no entry exam, right?
Like, yeah.
Anyone who turns 18, at least in this country, welcome aboard.
Well, also that, but like, if you don't need to know everything to be considered an adult. Like, you don't lose your status.
Correct.
Like for the longest time, I was like, oh man, I don't know enough things. And then you like talk to some other adults that are even older than you, and you're like, I'm sorry, you know less things than me? What? Like, it's just, oh no, it's okay. We're all stupid. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, you're part of the same club as I am.
Yeah, exactly. If you were to ever take part in a WWF styled event, what would you want your walkout song to be?
Ooh, so I am not a tough guy, nor have I ever been, nor do I ever pretend to be. So I would actually like to be a manager. And
I mean, you still gotta
go out
if you're walking out.
Oh, sure. Oh, good question.
I thought you were gonna go into I don't know, brother.
Oh no, I'm not that gifted. I'll circle back.
You're already halfway there.
Yeah, I guess so. I was so excited to say I wanted to be a manager. So,
I mean, isn't Vince McMahon a manager? Like he has a walkout song.
He does. I mean, yeah, he's kind of like the bad guy running the company, right?
Yeah.
In real life and in the script. So, we'll circle back. I don't have a song.
Good.
Yeah.
Oops.
Sorry. The Naked and Famous, they have a song, Young Something. I'll get it for you.
Naked and Famous.
I think they're on Australia.
Right now, I just have it written in my notes as Naked and Famous.
They have a song, Youngblood. It was pretty popular for like 2 seconds in 2011.
I'll have to go to listen to 2 seconds of it.
Yep.
In the interim, what's the proudest accomplishment that you've done that the fewest people know
I would say the building of my business in the way I think people want businesses to be built rather than by inheritance, loans, venture capitals, venture capitalism or capitalists. In that regard, I'm the most proudest of. Usually people look at a businessman and think something something nefarious was attached to the success.
Nefarious, or they were just, maybe they were born this rich.
Correct.
What business do you have, and how did it go about being created that you're so proud of it?
So I run an IT support company, specifically business to business. It's called Monarchy IT. So anything you can imagine that a small, medium business does in the office or offices that they have, technology wise, we take care of. Honestly, quote unquote, door to door. So businesses locally, and then expanding from there, pitching them, selling them, providing those services, and going from there. So there was no capital investment. There was no seed funds. There was no group that was like, hey, you're a smart guy. Let's give you some money to start this business opportunity. No bank loans, nothing. Just sweat of the brow, old school
So
stuff.
you just started, basically you started in your garage, went door to door, and just built customers,
Yep.
built personnel, all that from there.
Yep.
So it's like it's like the story of how Apple started, but in actuality.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Apple had a lot of money just given to them at multiple points, and then also the owner was a slimy piece of crap. Moving on.
Although I will agree.
Yeah, before I get tucked away too much in that. What's your biggest everyday temptation?
Sugar, candy.
What particular, is there one that stands out?
Oh, sure.
Like, that's kryptonite.
The colored Tootsie Rolls. So you know how like some of the Tootsie Rolls are like, they have like flavors instead of just the chocolate ones?
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, so they have flavored Tootsie Rolls insides?
Yeah.
Okay,
I would die of diabetes the next day if I had like an endless supply.
do you have a favorite flavor?
Oh, the mystery blue wrapper one. I think it's vanilla, but like they don't tell you.
And they shouldn't. It keeps you guessing.
Exactly.
Do you have a favorite myth that you like to dispel, or that you find yourself most commonly dispelling?
Ooh. Let me think about that one. Myth.
Doesn't have to be like a myth. Like, for example, the one that I like to dispel is that Napoleon wasn't short. Napoleon was actually, depending upon who you match him up against, would either be average size or rather tall. And the reason it was done that way was by I believe a British cartoonist at the time, to quell the fear and make light of the war that was occurring.
Right. Okay. What do I correct people on? I correct people on like basic living, so that's not great. Myths. What am I correcting?
You said basic living. I mean, like, there's certain things that people think you're supposed to do it in this order, and it's like either it doesn't matter, and like the idea that like, oh, you gotta eat this then, or if you sleep after you eat, this will happen. It's like a lot of those are apparently like wildly untrue. It's just
like I do that a lot. So one thing I do is with all of the diet phase, all of the I tried to sneak it in there. You caught it.
I caught the doo-doo.
With all the diet crazes that are out there every day, all day, it's the calories in, calories out at the end of the day. That's what matters. That's what you should track if you're going to track and try to lose weight. So I do dispel that quite a bit, because I have a lot of friends that like to diet. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. And there are some good diets that I think like incidentally have that kind of tracked in.
Right.
Like for me, like intermittent fasting is a good way to do calories in, calories out, because you're full and then you're not, and then you're full. And so you're not constantly like half full throughout like the whole entire day.
Correct.
And like same thing with like taking away snacks. A lot of snacks have a lot of calories but don't fill you up.
Yep.
And so like if you're able to reduce those, you are incidentally doing calories in, calories out, but it is not like some mystical thing.
Yeah.
I remember there's like, what was it? Oh, what was that one diet? It was so stupid. I'm sure it worked in some facet, but is it paleo, or like is that the one that's like you're supposed to eat like a caveman? There's one that was like,
paleo is like that. Carnivores like that too.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, this. It's like, I mean, if you line it up properly, but if
Sure.
you just like don't pay attention and you've got like a like you're just like a real fat fuck who just likes to just like mow down, raising my hand as I'm saying this because I
Yeah.
definitely did this one for a hot second. It doesn't help. You're
No.
eating a lot of fat and like dense caloric shit. Like
Yeah.
if you don't fill easily, which I didn't in my 20s, I would just eat rack of rib, rack of rib, rack of rib, and I was like,
Right.
oh man, this is awesome. It's like, wait, why am I not losing any weight? Oh, I don't know. You've been eating racks of ribs all
You've been
day.
eating 3,000 calories a day,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah, totally.
Speaking of food, what's your favorite meal to make just for yourself?
Oh, this is where I get exposed. I don't cook.
All right. In lieu of that, what's your favorite poor man luxury that you still enjoy to this day? Perhaps something you were eating when you were making your company that you still just look at and go, ah, that's just awesome.
I lived off of Marie Callender's microwavable meals.
Love it. What's your go-to?
Chicken pot pie.
Yes! Man of culture.
I try to be.
It's the best. It's just like,
It's
it's
the
one
best.
of those things. It's so perfect.
It's so cracked. Like,
Yeah. It's got all the unnecessary ingredients you could ever want in something that is savory.
100%.
It's like it's the blend of like it's basically like it's like a savory dessert. It's like it's got pie in the name.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I lived off of those.
If you could check your life stats, what non-requisite or YouTube activity do you think you have the most amount of hours logged on?
Can you explain that to me a little better?
So, you know how like a lot of video games, I don't know why they do this because everybody looks at them and vomits and then either stops playing the game or gets depressed. But a lot of video games will have an hours played, like you can find, or games played, and you can just look at how much of a degen you are.
Gotcha.
Which I guess if like you just embrace that and you can compare it with other people, it's kind of cool. But for a lot of people, myself included, you look at that and you go, "Oh God,
Yeah,
what
I spent
have
so
I
much time
done?"
doing this.
Yeah, and it's an interesting idea. Like if you think back, if you talk to God and looked at like life stats of like, all right, what did I do the most of? Did I ride my bike more than I read a book? Did I watch TV more than I slept? So obviously you take out eating food, you
Right.
take out sleeping,
Right.
and like anything else that is
Working.
like, well, if you don't do
Yeah.
this, you're probably going to die or not be a human being anymore. If you take those out, and YouTube, because I feel like YouTube is the go-to answer for everybody these days,
Yeah.
maybe like Twitter or something like that too, for depending upon the person.
Cool. If you want to re-ask it, I'll answer.
All right, if you could check your life stats, what non-requisite, non-YouTube activity do you think you have the most amount of hours logged on?
Skateboarding.
Oh yeah, let's go.
It's
Are
a
you a
great activity that I recommend to everyone.
my knees are going to disagree with you, but live your best life. Do you ride to ride, or do you ride to trick?
I ride to trick.
Okay.
It doesn't work well when you're old and unskilled like I am. It didn't work well when I was young and skilled either. But it's still, I have a competitive built-in nature that unfortunately rears its ugly head in whatever activity I'm going to choose to do. So
Have you seen the Till the Wheels Fall Off documentary on HBO?
I want to say I did.
Is the Tony Hawk one, and just kind of like just a biopic, but it's very well done. The the ending of it is disturbingly, amazingly harrowing. It goes throughout this whole entire movie, telling about his life. You watch multiple times that recently, in his 50s, he has like tried to do a trick, and somewhere between trying to do a trick you fail and it hurts, and being old, he just like hurt himself.
Oh, yeah, he breaks his pelvis.
Well, one of them, it's a loop-de-loop, and he doesn't get enough speed,
Oof.
and he goes all the way up and then all the way down, but not in the way you're supposed to.
Not the
like
way you're
on
supposed to.
his head,
Oof.
and you're just like, the editor and or director wisely just took out basically most of the sound, and so you're just left and like hearing people go, "Shit, Tony," and going over, and he's just he's just got this laceration all across his left cheek, and like where he fell and landed, just like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it sounds
And the
like Tony
movie-
Hawk for you, though.
Yeah. But I mean, like, the same kind of thing of, like, I probably shouldn't be doing these tricks, but I gotta. Literally, the movie ends with them, I think it's Stacy Peralta, is that his name? the
Yep.
guy who made the Bones Brigade.
Yep.
They at like for a 30-year reunion or something like that, they redid I think it's the quadruple vert that was like the Bones Brigade was like famous for in like their
Yeah.
first
Like
video.
the double doubles. Yeah.
Yeah, the double double.
That's awesome.
It's so dope. And Tony's the richest of them.
Of course.
Makes like either invited them over or like made the ramps that they needed so they could shoot this video. And they're shooting this video and having fun. Everybody's kind of doing their thing. They do the promotional thing, like they do the same trick so that they can, you know, kind of do a match cut. It's really cool. Everybody's having fun, and they're talking about this, and I know immediately where it's headed when watching the movie. Highly recommend watching the movie. Sorry for the slight spoiler, but they're talking about, you know, everybody's doing their tricks, and then they realize, you know, they kind of feel them approaching the precipice of, I'm 50 and I shouldn't be trying to do this kind of thing, and they will bail on a trick. They'll, you know, duck their legs, slide on their, you know, on their pads, which, as somebody who grew up in the time of people not wearing pads and helmets, I do love seeing that. And so, you know, they'll duck out of a trick because 50. Except
it's a good
for
reason
fucking,
to duck out of a trick.
Except for fucking Tony.
Yeah.
Who tries doing, I don't remember what trick it is, something edgy, and fucking eats it. And like, it's a fun time, and Tony has to push it, and then everybody's like concerned if Tony's gonna die. And afterwards, Stacy, it like does this close up on Stacy. He goes, somebody has to tell Tony that he can't do this anymore.
Yeah, we need some
like,
kind of control.
This is not okay. He's gonna die. And then it cuts to a lot of people that Stacy called, and they're like, I mean, Stacy's right, but who the fuck am I to tell Tony Hawk he can't skateboard anymore? Dude, like his brother, his sister, his friends, everybody's like, how do you tell Tony Hawk he can't skate anymore? Exactly. Like, you can tell him if you want, but like, we're not going to be the guy to tell him. And then the conclusion is, yeah, like, nobody told him, and Tony Hawk's going to die doing this, and we are all now complicit because we've watched the movie.
Exactly.
It's so fucked. But the way you're talking about, like, skateboarding, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, that's what I'm hearing in, like, a lighter echo.
Yep, it's what it's about. When you're bit with the bug, you're bit with the bug, as they say. Stacy Peralta is one of, if not the most influential person in the history of skateboarding. So,
for those who don't know, how so?
So Stacy Peralta was a member of the famous Dogtown team, or the Z-Boys team, when skateboarding got out of the countercultural boom of the 60s, and where it became an actual sustainable industry into the 70s, and obviously over the last 50 plus years. When he, quote unquote, retired, he teamed up with what is now the Bones company. Give me a second here. I'm blanking on the guy's name.
Yeah, the guy who made the skateboards, right?
No. Why am I blanking? George Peralta, Powell. George Powell, because Stacy Peralta is the other half. So he teams up with George Powell, another unsung figure in the history of skateboarding. And they create the Bones Brigade team, of which Tony Hawk is eventually a member. But what Stacy Peralta did is, historically, skateboarding professionals had just won some money at skateboarding competitions. But with the Bones Brigade, they made videos. And the video sales and the video culture of skateboarding became a thing and offered a different avenue to wanton professional skateboarders as they're going through the system to actually make a living through sponsorships and video parts, rather than having to go to competitions only to be able to do what they wanted to do, in this case, skateboarding.
Yeah.
So he's one of, like I said, if not the most important person in the history of skateboarding because of that fact.
I'd love to see it. Well, speaking of dreams and aspirations of fame and fortune, what's the last memorable dream you had?
It's still one I still have. I'd love to be a professional Magic the Gathering player.
You'll go to sleep and like have a dream of like winning a tournament or doing a deep run or something like that, and then wake up and go, fudge!
Exactly. I don't even have to dream about it. I will, in the middle of my day, get sidetracked with delusions of grandeur.
Oh, for sure. But no, I'm talking about like, you know, sleep, was it, not RPM, but like
REM.
Right, like deep REM, like uncontrolled dream.
Yeah, that's it.
What's your favorite one, or the one that like you remember most or happened most recently, magic wise, that was a a sleep dream.
I don't know whatever the term it was that was regarding, but just coming down the escalator at the airport with the trophy, and you just got all your boys there that just just mob you, right?
That's awesome.
So that is the dream, capital letters. So.
All right. Well, lastly, before we throw it to commercial break, if you could have listeners of this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
Float On by Modest Mouse. Most sad songs and most melancholy songs just have a somber tone. And if I remember correctly, this song was written for about after the passing of the vocalist's mother. Unfortunately, I lost my best friend at the time, around the same time, to suicide. And just the upbeat pop rock to it was just something I never heard in like a somber song. Those who listen to it will know, like, there's no down at all in the song. And it was just, I had never seen that take on how to deal with sadness, that I was really struck by it, and still am to this day.
Yeah. No, it's a great blending of sadness with like looking to the future, with like reminding the listener, and I'm sure himself, it's gonna be okay. This does suck, but we're gonna make it.
Exactly.
And with that, we're gonna throw it to our first break. Feel free to stick around and enjoy this totally real commercial, or better yet, take a minute to enjoy Float On by Modest Mouse. Or if you really wanted to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify. Passionate People and Preposterous Peeps Podcast, Song Rex. It's a long title, I know. Don't worry, there's a link in the description. Either way, see you in a bit. Do you ever find yourself sitting around with an emptiness inside your soul, or larger than preferred vacuous space? Would you like to change that? I thought so. Now introducing Stuff. For when you have nothing to do but important things. Stuff. For when you're lacking personality and intrigue. Stuff. When the world has taken a pickaxe-sized chunk out of your heart. Stuff. And if Stuff no longer fulfills these needs, please don't hesitate to look into our life-enhancing product, Addiction. Welcome back, everyone. So, Matt, what is your passion that you have brought with you today?
Playing Magic the Gathering.
Heyo! Fan favorite. So, what is it about Magic specifically that, you talked earlier about having dreams of hoisting a trophy, being, mobbed by the boys? What is your reason? What is your, kind of big aspect of Magic that really kind of gets you going?
I remember seeing Magic for the first time in Mrs. Thorson's core class at said McAuliffe Middle School. It was the gifted class that for some reason I lied myself into. And there was a group of 3 or 4 guys that were looking at what we would call booster packs, or packs of cards in them, and going over what they had opened. And I remember, I won't use his full name, but I called out to one of them named Sam and asked him, what is that? What are you guys doing? And he looked at me and said something to the effect of, "Don't worry about it, Matt, you wouldn't understand." And the backhanded, put me in my place kind of tone of the comment has driven me for 20 plus years since.
I'm going to understand, you son of a bitch.
Exactly. I am going to show you.
How dare. So this is where you said middle school, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so we're about the same age, if not exactly the same age.
Unfortunate for the both of us then.
Sure. You've got a business. I work at a charter school. Who's who feels bad? So your middle school, you're like what, 12, 13, so that's 22 years ago. So it's 2001. So what was that?
So it was Odyssey.
Invasion or Odyssey just came out?
Invasion was 2000. Odyssey was 2001. It would have been the Odyssey block, but they were looking at or going over Invasion block cards.
Okay.
Or what would have been Invasion block cards at the time.
So, yeah, you're doing... That timeline doesn't sound right.
They
think Invasion
weren't
just come
current
out.
like with the sets.
No, but like 2003 is when Onslaught came out, right?
Correct.
So 2002 would have been Odyssey, 2001 would have been Invasion.
I could have sworn Invasion was 2000.
This is the most in the weeds, who gives a crap Magic discussion.
Your audience is like, wow, this guy really is a nerd. I will prove my nerdness. All sets.
So 2000.
Card set archive.
September was Odyssey. January and May were Plane Shift Apocalypse. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Ish. We're both right. Let's go with that.
Okay. You got it.
So that's your first introduction, is being kind of like, you're not cool enough or smart enough, Matt. And you're like, oh, them's fighting words.
Exactly. I will show you who the king nerd is.
At that time, was competitive a thing in that area, a thing for you? Were you somebody who like played sports?
Growing up, I did. I played nothing but sports. I consider myself much more like a sports or athletic mind, tracked mind than the typical nerd stuff. Like I don't play video games or computer games. Never really did growing up either. Besides working in tech, I really don't have any other like tech adjacent or quote unquote nerd culture adjacent activities outside of Magic. So I don't play chess. I don't play other games like board games.
So how
or
did you
anything like
get?
that.
So just the dismissal of your intelligence was enough to entrap you in this super nerdy behavior, even though you weren't otherwise particularly nerdy?
100%. Just the challenge, the
The
disrespect.
gauntlet tossed down, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
When was your first time? So this is like 2001. This first happens. When was your first tournament that you ever played?
First tournament would have had to have been at the old Wizards of the Coast stores that they used to have in malls. And the mall that I went to first was called Westminster Mall in Westminster, California. I would have had my first F&M there. I think that's where my first tournament took place.
Okay, so you go. Wait, is that same year? Like you get knee deep in?
It would have
one, or-
been within that first year, for
Oh
sure.
wow!
If
Did not
not
waste any time.
zero. I quickly was the best in the lunch group or the schoolyard, as they say.
How quickly did you show Sam what's up?
Probably not. Well, not his group adjacent. So LaSalle has only one school system, so we have way more kids at the time going to each school than is definitely how it should be working. So in my nerd adjacent group, that's how that worked, because it quickly spread at the time. And that's what I took over. And then from there branched out. I want to say a friend had actually first gotten me back into Pokemon cards, which had fallen out of favor the couple years prior, but he was still into it. So we would go to the Westminster Mall to play Pokemon, and from there I jumped into Magic.
Okay.
And I knew where to go to play because I had been to the Wizards of the Coast store at Westminster Mall before to play Pokemon.
Okay, so there was a kind of lining up of saw Magic cards, got dismissed by this Sam Jerkface guy.
Yep.
And then it was on like Donkey Kong.
100%.
How long until you said you were like the kind of best in your school group?
Yep.
How long until you won your first tournament?
Ooh, that took a lot longer. I'm trying to think. I probably picked up an F&M probably within the next couple of years. I want to say I had a nice string where I got involved in the Astral Slide archetype or the cycling archetype in Standard within the next year or two. That I had
so
a nice little run.
You get started within a year or so. You're to your winning ways.
Yes.
Was there ever, as someone who was as hell-bent on victory and had played sports, was there ever a concern or ever blowback from, would you ever have considered yourself a jock, I guess, before I get into this question?
No, I'm not dumb.
Okay. But, like, it sounds like if you were
bad
playing...
joke, jock listeners, bad joke.
Yeah, so were you ever... It sounds like you were on more than just, like, kind of pickup games for teams with the way you approach winning and losing. So you're kind of in that, like, especially, growing up around the same time, I presume, considering we also both lived on the same coast, that there was this idea of playing sports is cool, reading comic books, playing card games is kind of dumb at the time. Was there ever any blowback from your, kind of teammates from sports or other people that you had commiserated with when you kind of started picking up this other hobby?
Absolutely not, because I'm a floater. And for those who don't know that terminology, what that means is that I basically chameleon across different socio groups and conform and take from them, move it over to the next one, take from that new next group, move it back to the one I came from. I actually think that's one of my best abilities, is not to chameleon, because that's very negative, but as a floater, to be able to be a part of a group, understand that group, take the good from that group, intermingle it with another one.
That's interesting. So they never, were you kind of top of the food chain, so middle that like you didn't get blowback? Were they progressive? Like I understand the concept, but I'm kind of shocked that there wasn't any like, oh, Matt's playing cards now.
I was able to successfully merge them among the close friends that I had.
You kind of
if there was blowback from the periphery, like acquaintances, I never heard it.
All right, so it almost sounds like less of a chameleon, more of like almost like a trendsetter or like enabler of like integration. Like you were able to take Magic and go, yeah, I play this game as well as basketball, as well as baseball, as well as soccer, whatever you were doing, and not necessarily make it cool, but make it so that it wasn't othered as much.
100%.
Right on, man.
I
look at you go.
I like people. I like people liking other people, and sometimes me, and I'm going to try to make that happen when I can.
Literally, fuck the haters.
Exactly.
So you go on, you do this for some years, you win some FNMs. What was your first kind of crowning achievement playing Magic at such a young age?
I think within that first year or two, I top 8'd a JSS with a homebrew mono green Stompy deck.
Nice.
At the old sacred hallowed ground for Southern California Magic grinding, the Costa Mesa Women's Club.
I have heard rumor of such a hall of greatness. Never was down here when it was in full swing.
Most of my best memories as a teenager are from my time in those hallowed halls. So,
what would you say your dream involvement with Magic would look like, or what would you hope it would amount to?
I would love to buy WotC.
Love it.
Whether or not my company is ever anywhere near the valuation that Hasbro would
you're gonna need to
sell it to me is a better question.
You're gonna need to blow my so for those of you at home, why I'm giggling, not that I don't love the idea of Matt doing this, I think he would be a great owner, or, head of CEO, blah blah, is Magic is currently estimated, depending upon year and time frame, from I think it's between $8 and $12 billion.
This would be correct, which is also why I'm giggling.
Yeah, I like your gumption, good sir.
Reach for the stars, right? Isn't that what we were told?
All right. Well, sans you making your company that big where you can absorb such a thing. Although Monarchy WotC is a lovely kind of ring to it. What do you hope to achieve in as far as the competitive sphere, where you kind of get your rock off so hard, so to speak?
To be able to call myself a professional, or at the professional level. So
what would that mean to you? What would that look like?
Probably chaining like a year of Pro Tour invites together, so that rather than spiking an invite to one and then not doing well, to be able to say I was there and that I sustained it for a year or so that it wasn't a fluke, so to speak.
Right on. Would you rather, and I apologize for those that this might come across as too inside baseball, would you rather win a Pro Tour, but be regarded as being particularly lucky, having made misplays on camera, but having the trophy and the paycheck? Or would you rather have a series of near misses with one top 8 where you lost even though you played better than your opponent?
The second one, not even close.
So a lot of it is, the reason I asked this question, a lot of it is the way you are perceived by the kind of pro population in the scene rather than it is the accolade.
So I'll go into more of like the deeper answer of why
Love
Magic's
it. Yes, please.
such a driver and such a passion. As a kid growing up, as soon as they put that stupid mark gifted on you or on your record, I feel like the adults take their hands off. They say to themselves, hey, this is a kid that we don't want to mess up, because my personal opinion is that usually adults are the reason to blame for kids that don't work out. And a lot of the times growing up, what I would hear from adults is, but you're smart. Why are you having a hard time with this? Or why won't you just do this? Or don't worry about whatever the worry is. You'll figure it out. You're smart. And so you are placed this burden of intelligence that, let's be honest, even if it's true, didn't come from you. It's genetics, right?
Yeah.
Like our brain just happens to have a couple deeper folds than general population, right? That's it. Like, it's nothing I had anything to do with, right? Now, surely when you get into, especially those preteen teenagers, there is something you can do about intelligence. You can sit at home, get stoned. That's something you can do. Or you can dive into whatever world that you want to know more about and gain actual intelligence that way. And Magic, to me, and I'm glad MIT ended this debate a couple years ago when they threw their AI at it, has always been the most difficult game I've ever seen and I've ever interacted with. And as soon as I found the game, I thought, what a better way of getting rid of these inadequacy feelings that are being placed on me as a quote unquote intelligent kid than by showing them, hey, I can be really intelligent by being really good at this really difficult game.
Very much I'll show you, I'll show myself kind of
100%.
complex. Have you ever looked... So, I feel that very much so. I wonder, have you ever looked at that and thought, maybe this is something I should talk to somebody else about, as opposed to try and perfect and, put a crown on?
That would require me to think about... Not just only think, but think about like what's best for me rather than what I want to do, and I really struggle with that. So
yeah,
It's
much more fun as someone who also.
True.
And for the record, I have no experience in this category, and I'm just kind of asking this for my own personal self as well, because I do the same thing, and I think to the end of it, like, there is no like answer. It's just an interesting thing to think about. Is this? I have these thoughts of, is this good for me, or do I just enjoy doing it? Like, there's...
Oh, I have no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Like, I think it's bad. I think the headspace is bad. Like, especially what I can get into if it's not going well for me. Like, I do not recommend it. It's just the only way, even outside of Magic and other things, that I've found myself to actually, so to speak, crack the whip on myself and get stuff done. It is just that you have to have what I call my drive, and go from there.
No, I was more speaking about, kind of getting lost in my own thoughts here. This is a really interesting and deep subject that I wish I had a PhD so I could talk in any amount of seriousness about. But it's very fascinating. I had a talk with a coworker a while back at work about what would have happened if I didn't find Magic.
Oof.
Like, if I had never come across it, how much would my life have changed? Because I do love this game. It's been the driving force of my life. It's how I've met most, if not all, of my friends. It's where I spend a lot of my time. It's where almost all my favorite memories come from. It's where a lot of my wealth is currently wrapped up. There's like it is relatively all-consuming. I think it's a great comic that gets put out. A lot of people like to shit on it, but they can fuck themselves. It's called Cardboard Crack.
Best comic in the world.
It's a great comic. I think they do a pretty darn good job. It's not really deep or, this kind of subversive comedy, but I think it's like pretty fantastic, especially for a 4-panel comic. Keep it up, guys. Would love to have any of you on here if you heard about this. But the name is apt as fuck.
100%.
It is crack. It is such a well-designed game. It's so great. And the way generally it has been over the years with the design space and their release timings and their tournaments, it really does suck you in, and it's really hard to ever leave. Not that I would ever want to, but looking back at my life, it's like, what would have changed? Would I have been a better person? Would I have been sadder? Or is it just different? And looking at the way this game and all that comes with it, especially for those who approach it. And by the way, cardboard crack is for people. I don't want to like poo-poo other people's preferences. Magic is an open space, a sandbox of a game. You can play it however the fuck you want. However, the people that it really gets into are people such as Matt and myself, in my experience. The people that play it casually with their friends at a kitchen counter, they can walk away from a game. They can play it once a month. It doesn't matter, because there isn't that competitive thing. There isn't that drive to be the best, to get better. There isn't that need for approval, that need for perfection. And so it becomes a lot more casual, which is, I would arguably, more beautiful. That being said, never going to be me, definitely never going to be Matt, because there's no trophy when I'm playing at so much kitchen counter. There's no, it's a test of metal, a show of strength, sadly, for lack of a better term, who's, in quotes, bigger. That's what 100%, it is.
1,000%. My description of what Magic can do to you on the super competitive side is through a movie recommendation, which I don't know if I'm supposed to give one, but I will to the audience. There is a movie called Pawn Sacrifice from about 10 years ago that is about the life of the tragic chess figure Bobby Fischer.
Oh, yeah. This is the one with him and Liv Schreiber. Yeah.
Yep. And Peter Skarsgård plays his second. And he is a priest in the movie. And there is a scene in a hotel during one of Bobby's breakdowns where Peter Skarsgård's character is talking to the character that is the CIA handler for Bobby at all these tournaments. That's an interesting history fact if you didn't know it. And they're discussing what to do about Bobby's latest breakdown. And in doing so, Peter Skarsgård's character recounts the, unfortunately, also tragic story of the previous best American chess prodigy, Paul Morphy, and the unfortunate demise of Mr. Morphy as a result of playing competitive chess. And that 2 or 3 sentence monologue given by Peter Skarsgård's character about the downfall of Paul Morphy is the best soliloquy on the depths of unfortunate hell that are available to competitive Magic players that I've seen.
Yeah.
So I recommend anybody to go watch that scene. The movie is great, but if you want a perfect encapsulation about what we're talking about right now, that scene does it.
So with knowing all that and being as intelligent as you are and being able to go into other games and find joy in competition, what is it about Magic that keeps you coming back even though you kind of know it is an incendiary beauty?
The however slim it might be, chance at approval, and by approval I mean justifying or granting all of those things that were said about me when I was a youth, and that can only be accomplished by doing the hardest thing. What's the hardest thing? Being good at Magic.
What is the perfect, or not the perfect, what is your average kind of day in the life of an aspiring competitive Magic player such as yourself?
I would say, because I'm lucky enough to be outside of the necessity to work 8 to 12 hours a day, like most people, I'm going to review, when I first get up, I'm going to review the online platform called Magic the Gathering Online and the recent deck lists in various formats that did well on that platform the day before. I'm going to review the cards specifically to the archetype or the type of cards that I play in those formats. That's going to be most of my morning, while I'm also cross-referencing a couple of websites. I'm guessing most Magic listeners might have heard of them. If not, however, I think they're very useful for actual Magic strategy. The first one is going to be a great website called mtgmeta.io. And the reason I love that one the most, and it's my current favorite, is because it has a moving data table of matchups in each format or each quote unquote meta game in real time, and it tracks these results. So one of my least favorite things to do is listen to Magic players tell each other what's a good matchup and what's a bad matchup. This takes care of that because you can pull it out and show them, no, this is what the actual results are in big tournaments or important tournaments with good players. From there, I will check results at mtgtop8.com, and I will look at averages at mtggoldfish.com. From there, I'm either going to get cards that I might have discovered I do not have from the morning review, quote unquote, and order them. If I am not otherwise engaged, I'm going to go on the platform I mentioned previous, Magic the Gathering Online, and play a tournament, or I'm going to go to my local store and play something or test something with other players there. And if it's an off day, I will plan my travel for the weekend of competitive play, which for me, I am, again, fortunate enough to be able to competitively play where I want to. For example, you've seen me at qualifier events in California. I play them in Arizona, in Nevada, mostly Las Vegas, and in Texas for the most part over the past year, but I live in New Mexico. So a lot of that off time is going to be spent planning the upcoming weekend of competitive events.
Right on. Is there someone that you would want to work with, test with, or play against in the Magic sphere? Is there a, like, as this is, a competitive sport, there are pros, there are, kind of, I don't want to call them A-listers, but, all-stars. Is there anybody that you would want to beat and or, test with for a major tournament?
I wouldn't want to beat anyone, but I have two. Well, kind of three. One is John Finkel, because for those listening, he is regarded as the most talented Magic the Gathering player of all time. Whether or not he's the best and how you decide that, whether it's by best finishes, longest career, is up for debate. But I think, especially since I've watched him myself multiple times, the most talented in the history of the game is definitely John Finkel. He now runs a hedge fund in New York, and I think a lot of his strategy with investment is actually stuff I have subscribed to for quite a long time. So not only would I like to interact with him on a Magic scale, but I'd also like to see how well my non-investment but understanding of the principles lines up with somebody actually implementing them on a day-to-day basis at their investment firm. And then the one that would be the most sentimental is I can't tell you how many times I was driven home by my parents from the earlier mentioned Costa Mesa Women's Club, dreaming that one day I would be as cool or as good at Magic as Paul Rietzel and Matt Sperling are. Paul, because he looks, well, I won't put him down and say that he looks like me. But we're from the same common ancestor, as well as say. Yeah. So tall white guy, but you do your hair, you dress presentable. He wore glasses at the time. But the way he carried himself was so unlike the usual quote unquote nerd that is seen playing Magic.
Nothing schlubby about it.
Exactly. I wanted to be like that so bad. And then Matt Sperling, the level of intelligence that guy has and had at the time that I'm referencing, the personality, that kind of edgy or alternative personality, was mine as well. And those two ran that place, and I wanted to be like them so bad. Who knows? Maybe what we're discovering is that I still want to be like the both of them so bad. So that would be the three that I would say.
Love it. What do you think is the biggest misconception about your passion by the wider world and people who have kind of found out that you do this and then like tell you something and you're just like, well, you're just wrong?
I would say that it involves only enjoying it the way I've explained it, and I'm glad you brought up how many different ways there are to play Magic. Usually, the reason why I don't bring it up, and I usually just tell randoms, I play cards rather than I play Magic.
Yeah.
Is that it has some kind of nerd stereotype attached to it, which it does, but even on top of that, or that it's for a certain type of person, when in reality, as you said earlier, there are so many different ways to play this game that we're describing. I really think it's a great game that can be enjoyed by anyone and everyone, and I hope it is at some point.
Absolutely.
My great dream for the game is that it is seen in the light of chess at some point.
Yeah.
Or in the light
you
of
can
poker.
play it. You can play it with grandpa
people. Yeah.
without clocks, or you can go to the park.
Yeah.
And show people what to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. On the flip side of that, what's your favorite non-obvious aspect of Magic, especially when it comes to competitive Magic?
The grind. Unless you're super competitive, like the both of us and those that might be listening, the toll physically, mentally, especially as you're trying to, in this case, we'll just say qualify, you're not going to understand it unless you're in the weeds like us.
Yeah. The best way I've seen it put is it's like Patrick Sullivan once said, like, I think it was on like an airing or maybe on a podcast. He said that it's like golf. It's only for people. It's at the moment. It's generally speaking only for people with money and like competitive Magic. It's only for people with money and people that are like very like deep into the game.
100%.
Like when you watch basketball, it doesn't matter if you know any of the rules of basketball, because you watch a guy slam the ball down and then just glare at the guy who's now on his back on the floor. You know who got the point. You know who's a bitch. You know who's the badass. Yep. These things all track. But in Magic, there are games that if you watch it, you're like, oh, this guy's winning. And you'd be right some of the time. There's plenty of the times you would be drastically wrong about where the game is. And they comically, I don't think they do it anymore from the coverage I was watching the other weekend, but they used to have this advantage bar that was like,
I remember that.
Who's keeping up with that? Because it is just like somewhere between nebulous and really hard to like be correct on. So it is kind of, without it being like dead obvious.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it would be great for it to be that good. Well, going from the delightful to the disastrous, Matt, what is your preposterous peeve?
Being told what to do. Now, let me explain.
Would you please kindly tell me what you mean by that?
I will tell you what I mean. So, from a 1,000-yard glance, of course, I've had jobs. I'm part of a giant family. I'm actually the oldest of 7. There's I don't know if I'd show that off. It was a fun time growing up. I'll just say that. So I can obviously be told what to do. I'm more talking about probably closer to being reminded to do something, where maybe it's a chore, where when growing up, for example, I had to take out the trash, and say I'm in the middle of something, I know I have to take out the trash. I'm going to take out the trash. I'm not some rebel. I'm not some, stomp my feet, not do what I'm told kid or person now. But in this example, if my mom were to say, come out of her room, see me in the living room watching TV, and remind me, hey, Matt, go take out the trash, that trash isn't getting taken out. In fact, that trash is going to sit there and not get taken out until enough time has lapsed to where I can do it on my own terms and not give my mom any satisfaction that her reminder is what got me to do the action. It makes no sense. I do not recommend it to anyone because it causes nothing but problems. For example, in relationships, I am divorced, key word, as well as other interactions with your fellow human being. But for whatever reason, I have been wired this way since I can remember.
Do you have a story of when this shone the boldest, or like it was like a major offender?
Ooh, definitely in relationships. So whenever I would have to get something done that is a necessity, mind you, like this isn't taking out the trash probably isn't a necessity, but whenever I had to get something done that is a necessity, it applies to that too. So whatever that necessity is or was, if I'm not doing it and you want to put it on your timeline rather than my own, it's not getting done. Sorry. You knew better. You knew better. You knew that you can't remind me or tell me what to do, that I have to do it. Or it's not going to work out. So it's toxic AF, as the kids say. I do not recommend it. Something tied back to that kid, that skateboarding kid, and that edgy kid who just wants to, live his life and be in the world on his own terms. I'm sure it's tied to that.
And no wonder you own your own business.
Exactly.
What do you think is like the time, or what do you think is the one that was the easiest that you put up the biggest fuss for? Was somebody like, hey, can you hand me that loaf? And you just like walked all the way around the earth before you handed it to him, like from the opposite side of the room. Like what circumstance do you look back and go and just kind of like shake your head? Not because it was bad, but because it was ludicrous that it went to this length over something so tawdry, over something so minuscule.
I'll tie it back to the magic discussion we had previously. Okay. I've been asked for cards and had them literally transporting them, and gotten a text or DM or a call reminding me to bring it or asking if I had it and not deliver it.
Are you sure you have a 9-year-old and you are not a 9-year-old yourself?
I am 100% a 9-year-old myself.
Good golly, Miss Molly.
Again, I'm owning this. This is not a trait I would want in anyone else. Nor do I recommend acting like this. Like you said, no wonder I have my own business. You can imagine how well I do jobs for other people or with other people. So
yeah.
It's absolutely ludicrous. So
all right. Well, with that, we're gonna head to our second ad break so I can compose myself. But don't go anywhere, because when we get back, Matt is gonna enter the lightning round if he wants to. I don't know. We'll see. Have you ran out of new stuff to do, rendering your life wholly unsatisfying? Do you have too much time on hand and have no idea what to do with it? Or are you just plain over this existence and wish for a plane with more intrigue? Might I introduce you to Addiction? Addiction deals with all these problems and more. Had to meet your significant other's parents and would rather not? Addiction. Had to go to work for the third day in a row? Addiction. Rent? Why not? Addiction. Addiction cannot be held responsible for your choice of choosing to imbibe in addiction. Any and all life-destroying fallout as a result of addiction cannot be legally pinned on addiction. But you're more than welcome to try. And we're back. Matt, are you ready to enter lightning round?
As ready as I'll be.
All right, buckle your seatbelts and keep your arms inside the ride at all times. Matt, is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
No.
Make the food or do the dishes?
Make the food.
Do you ever cheat on a test in school?
Yes.
Would you rather have your inner monologue sound like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
Gottfried.
Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
Pineapple on pizza all day.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Another amazing thing.
Is professional wrestling cool or lame?
It's so cool.
Nick Cage, best or worst ever?
Probably worst.
Are soups smoothies?
No.
Do you create your own thoughts or do you just listen to them?
You create them.
Would you rather there was no line at checkout or the fast food place always give you a large fry when you ask for a medium?
No line at checkout.
Cheese fries, an abomination or gift from God?
Gift from God.
Album, shuffle, or playlist?
Playlist.
Is there such a thing as a perfect piece of art?
Yes.
Have you ever had a crush on a cartoon character?
Not a crush, no.
What is more important, freedom or structure?
Freedom.
Are you out of touch, or is it the children who are wrong?
Children are definitely wrong.
Communicate only in emojis or never text again?
Never text again.
Would you rather have tentacle arms or kangaroo legs?
Kangaroo legs.
No internet ever again, or the internet streams directly into your brain at all times?
No internet again.
Would you rather be a human in a world of Muppets or a Muppet in a world of humans?
Human in a world of Muppets.
Meet an extraterrestrial or a ghost?
Meet an extraterrestrial.
Muzak at all times that only you can hear, or a live studio audience that everyone can hear?
Ooh, live studio audience that everyone can hear.
Surf or turf?
Turf.
Would you rather have squeaky clown shoes for feet or a clown nose for a nose?
Clown nose for a nose.
Schrodinger's cat, alive, dead, or both?
Probably dead.
Are hot dogs tacos?
No.
Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1 hour time limit?
No, absolutely not. I'm a slow eater.
Well, congratulations either way, because you've survived the lightning round! Wah!
Yeah!
Now, as a reward, my gallant guest, I grant thee a lightning round question of your own to be echoed until we get bored. That is, after you let me know what is your favorite food that you couldn't eat 37 of in a 1 hour time limit for $5,000?
Yellowtail fish.
All right. Fancy, fancy.
Very.
Now, your question, my guy.
My question is the proper way to eat breakfast: oatmeal or cereal?
So the answer should be oatmeal. And when I am being conscious and it's readily available, So if it's readily available, oatmeal, because then I'll be a good boy and I kind of like it. It's warm. I'm a big fan of warm food. But if I have to make it, it's cereal by a mile because I'm a lazy piece of shit.
Fair.
Yourself?
It's oatmeal.
It's always been oatmeal.
It's always been oatmeal.
How do you do up your oatmeal? Now here's the fighting terms. What's your how do you doctor your oatmeal, so to speak?
So it's only Quaker oatmeal.
Off to a good start.
And it's their original. So no flavors.
Okay.
But you sprinkle pepper in it.
Pepper?
Yeah.
All right.
Black
well, this
pepper.
has been a fun podcast. Pepper? What the fuck is wrong with you? Pepper? That's some like American Psycho shit. What the hell? Pepper? Oh my god, that is
Not a lot. Not only.
Dude,
peppers,
any is too many. What are you talking about?
All right. Well, you never had it. You haven't had it. You haven't tried it.
I don't need to have it.
Oh, okay.
It's like licking the pavement. I don't need to do it to know that shit's nasty. Fucking pepper? Nah, son. All right, let me correct this for the audience so they don't go putting pepper on their oatmeal like a fucking loon. You put brown sugar at the bottom. You put the oatmeal on top. You put raisins on top, and then you put, I don't want to say the heaviest cream because there's some whack ass thick shit that like is basically paste, but like whole milk on top, and then you give it a minute and you mix it all together. Voila, magnifique.
Upon review, I think the audience should also enjoy your version of oatmeal.
And only my version of oatmeal because it's the best. Moving on before I have to run screaming into the night or fight this man. Is there anything you want to plug, shoutouts you'd like to give, or places people can find you or your content?
I'm not big on social media, but I do have one place you can find me, and that is on Instagram at freestuffmatt.
Thanks so much, Matt.
Thank you.
All right. Take it away, future me. Well, thank you, Matt, for being my guest today. And special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you. Yes, you. Listening at home, wherever you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, or just share it with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry. We put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeps Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our patrons. Sabella Yellow. If you'd like to join said illustrious ranks and have your name read aloud, just head on over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeps Podcast. And remember, folks, if days are numbered and songs are sung, at the end of the day, I think we've all won. So please stick around, because great things have only just begun.